Hello, this is part two of my previous video. I apologize if I seem tired. I'm just recovering from my vacation. Ended up being, kind of um, a visit with my parents, and it was a little, I say stressful, but we ended up doing a lot of stuff. But anyway, trying to get back to the topic here. Um, So this is abortion part two. What I was trying to finish up with last time, I was basically saying that, um, how does God, I guess, view abortion? And again, this is just my opinion, and um, and really, I feel like, oh, maybe there is some experience through this, but um, I feel like God tends to view everything through grace. Um, as I've gotten older, I always kind of got um Satan and God twisted a little bit. Like I would have trouble knowing where Satan ended or God began. I know there's a lot more detail to that. But like for example, I was talking about sin a little bit before. I would always kind of feel like God was kind of responsible for sin. So like he was punishing you if you did something wrong, and I don't really feel that way anymore. Like I think God always knows about the things that, well, I call them sins. He knows that you are going to commit a sin, but he's not responsible for the consequences. Now, he can work it out to something better, but but um, he really has more grace, I think, than people realize. So, um, when it comes to abortion, I don't think God views anything um, like that as there's something bad about it. There's something bad about you if you have an abortion. I mean, and I think a lot of people get into the debate of like, well, what if this person's raped, and what if this, and what if that? There's all kinds of reasons to get abortions, and there's nothing wrong with getting an abortion. Um, but there are consequences to getting an abortion. I think that's what I was basically just saying. It brings, and this is what I would say for all sin. It's what I try to make a video on this, but anyway, um, sin is what when we sin, when we do something that you know, well, to try to give you a um, bigger picture. Okay, there's rules. God gave us, or God has rules, right, that we need to live by. If we disobey those rules, they kind of they're called sins, I guess, but they go against the rules that God has for us. A lot of them are in the Bible. Some of them you kind of learn through experience, but so if you tell a lie, you're gonna feel guilt. Guilt is the consequence. Sin is, I mean, lying is the sin. Okay, so that's kind of a basic idea, but so if you commit abortion, um, it's automatically one of those, I guess, like I said, rules that God has out there. Um, or you could say Satan um, uses abortion, or however you want to say it. But um, if you get an abortion, you are bringing the consequence of guilt into your life, for example. um, and and a lot of things are that way. But it's really hard to view it as, like I said, as a sin, as a negative, because you know, like I said, most people don't know any better when they do commit a sin, um, and the consequence may already be there, but it'll be years down the road before you really like understand the consequence, because you're not ignorant anymore. And I'm sorry, this is, I don't know, it sounds complicated. Maybe you're understanding it, but you know, for example, if I commit abortion when I'm 16, um, you know, God's, um, I guess you could say God has a rule kind of that you shouldn't commit abortion. So I commit abortion when I'm 16, and I don't feel like there's anything wrong with it for maybe 10 years, you know, because I don't know anything about it. But then I get all this information about how abortion um, is is killing a living thing, and you know, you meet somebody who you feel like you could have a baby with, and and you learn so much through your changing situation that you realize that it was a mistake, and now you're dealing with consequences. And guilt's a big one, because I don't think people realize how bad guilt can really be. It can haunt you for years. So you know, you may still be living with the flashback or the pain of what happened when you had an abortion. And again, I'm not trying to make it this evil, dirty thing. I mean, I really don't think that. Um, because I mean, because I've had different views my whole life about it, I do really understand. And you know, I mean, there are situations where you know, we usually get cornered into things like this. You know, I mean, it was an accident, or it was a rape, or um, you know, sometimes it's just not being ready. There's all kinds of things that can corner you into getting an abortion. Um, I was just trying to let you know that it can bring consequences to you, um, which I mean, it could still sound pretty bad, um, but I mean, that's, I guess that's the reality of it. I've learned that it is killing an innocent life. There's no way to kind of get around that. I really hate to look at things that way, because I know a lot of people, when you're ignorant of it, you're not going to look at it that way, and that's fine. It's just it's hard to really explain it if you haven't gone through it. If you're ignorant, maybe that's a negative word. If you don't have enough information about it, or even if you do think you have enough information about it, um, you know, you may just view it differently, and that's fine. Um, Regardless of whether you think that it's um, killing an innocent life, or if you think there's nothing wrong with it, that's okay. Um, you know, I just don't want you to think that God looks down on that at all, and I don't either. But I don't know what it sounds like, you know, what I'm describing, but I wanted to make sure that you know that God doesn't view it the way humans do at all. Like I said, there's much more grace, there's much more understanding, and you know, I really don't think God views things that we do as even sins, although I think that's a word we just use for it. But I don't think God views the things that we do as right or wrong. I think he just um, he feels sorry that we have to. deal with our consequences of our choices. And like I said, the ignorance of our actions. You know, I mean, there's been a lot of things that I did, and I realized 10 years later how bad it was because I had learned a lot since then. And I just had to, you know, try to either live with it or fix it. So, anyway, I'm going over on time, so I'll just go ahead and end it. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comment section. And I thank you for watching. Have a nice day.